Hey everyone, it's Marc Sabatella from Mastering MuseScore here, and welcome to the Music Masterclass. This is my regular weekly series that I do on Thursdays where we look at some aspect of making music. And we turn the music down here, speaking of which. But today is kind of a special episode in that I want to be talking about a new, exciting new thing that is going to give us a lot of direction, a lot of really powerful ideas to work on, and just direction. Things for you to work on. I have like a ton of ideas, and I kind of have a format in mind. So please go ahead and check in the chat. Let me know that I'm actually here live and that you're seeing and hearing me. I see that there's 10 or 11 people here. So good. People are checking in. Excellent. Cool. So, I hope it's issue free also. And I've got some other stuff to show you as far as that goes. So, we're going to just keep trying things and trying for success. So, as I mentioned in the MuseScore Café yesterday, one of the things, because live video always has possible things that can go wrong, right? Lots of things that can. In fact, my computer crashed just before this. So that happens, right? And hasn't happened in a long time actually for me, but happened again this morning, like 5 minutes before. So I had to really quickly set everything up again, and hopefully I got it right. But there's a few things that I like to do by doing live, because then we have the chat and all, but there's some things that I think just are more reliable, right? If I record videos, or text and recorded videos have a lot of value too. So I'm going to be relying as much on that as on the live thing for what we're talking about going forward. So let me talk some about what we're going to be doing and give you a heads up on some, things to work on to kind of get ready for what's coming. So again, the main what's coming that I want to talk about is this, what I'm calling Musicianship Skills Workshop. And it's going to be tied to this session, this Music Masterclass a bit. So the Music Masterclass will continue to be something where, you can watch live, participate in chat and all, whether you participate at all in this Musicianship Skills Workshop. The Music Masterclass will just continue to be, as it always has been, this sort of free live stream. But the Musicianship Skills Workshop is meant to be a hands-on thing. So going back and thinking about the jazz piano the jazz piano holiday course that I did last November, December, where I gave you specific lessons. Here's a project, and I had everyone work on your own songs, and we might do that some here. We might all work on the same piece or the same thing sometimes. But it'll be very directed, where I give you something specific to work on. You work on it. You post your results. I give feedback, and some of that feedback will come on in the form of recorded videos. So we don't have to rely on the internet gods to make sure the live goes off without a hitch, right? So some of it will be recorded videos. Sometimes I can just comment on your music. But then we'll also use the Music Masterclass to feature some of that. My screen share is frozen. Seriously? Well, I'm not changing anything, so that should be okay. Nothing's actually happening. But let me just da. Is it moving now? I hope it's moving, because there's basically just nothing happening. So hopefully that's the only reason you're not seeing things move. So let's talk about some of the things that we're going to do. So when the email that I sent out this morning, that unless you click the little box saying, I'm tired of getting these emails, you would have seen a relatively detailed account of the kinds of skills that I'm talking about and the value of them. I mean, that's my idea here. So we talk about things like ear training, and we use that word without really talking about what it means, right? And so there's been some discussion in the community lately about sight singing. And sight singing is absolutely a part of ear training. So I'm curious, though, when you say it's frozen, what are you expecting to see. Because nothing is moving right now. So if I'm moving the screen like this, it moves, right? But there's nothing happening right now on the screen. So there shouldn't be anything that you see moving. Now, if you're saying that my face doesn't seem to be moving, that would be a separate sort of thing from my screen share. So I guess that's what I'm still curious about here. But let me go on because obviously the picture above the keyboard is still. But this is what I'm saying. Okay, so even when I moved it, nothing happened. Okay. In that case, let's do something. Mm-hmm. So I guess my question is, do you see all sorts of things going on here? Because that's what I expect. Oh no, I killed my screen share. Let me reestablish my screen share and see if that makes things any happier. All right. So yes, anytime I'm working on it, you'll see my control panel. That's normal. That's not a problem. That's totally normal while I'm working on things. So this actually is yeah, and I went full screen while I worked on some things, and this is now this, and here are my hands on the keys, and you can tell me if that's working any better for you. Now, luckily today is one of the days when that's going to matter the least. So if screen share is not working, I'm just going to kill it, and we're just going to talk. And I'll play music that you don't get to see because that's part of what this is all about. What part of what ear training is all about. So there's a few things that I can say about ear training. So Jim Ivey has been posting these really nice ear training exercises that are basically sight singing exercises. Right? Here's a melody and you work on trying to sing it. And that is absolutely a part of ear training. But there's the flip side of it where you hear a melody and try to play that melody or write down that melody, right? That's the kind of flip side of ear training. Now, they're not unrelated. They're essentially two sides of the same coin. It's about this connection between what you're hearing and what the notes are, and so the same kind of skills that are involved in being able to sight sing are actually the same parts of the brain are involved in being able to transcribe melody. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit, because that is a practical skill for many purposes. So again, before I move on, let me know did what I just did, killing the screen share, setting it up again, did that fix it? Is it better now? I want to know that because that would be good for me to know. This here, I'm just holding it up to the camera because it's not that important that you see it big, is this paper keyboard that I posted once to the community, and I will resurface that link so you all see that. This paper keyboard is like a really useful tool, and I'm going to talk about this. In fact, I'm just going to kill my screen share right now because we don't need it at the moment. So, here you go. So here's my paper keyboard. Yeah. This keyboard here, yeah, that's really curious that it wasn't working, and I don't know why, but I'm not going to worry about it because not important right now. This keyboard here is it doesn't make any sound. It requires my voice to make sound. And so let's talk about a little bit of an exercise. And I've done this before, but I just want to talk about it right now. I'm going to just take a little melody, and I've got a melody right here. I don't even know what this thing is. Ding dong, diggity 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 dong. I don't remember what this came from, But ding dong, the cat's gone. I don't even know what this is. Someone posted this at some point. I printed it out. But it goes C, G, A, G. So the notes are C, G, A, G. I want to know what that sounds like. So there's this skill of audiating, which is a word someone used that is absolutely the right word for this. It's being able to see that melody there. And I don't know, does this show up backwards for you or does that show up forwards? I would like it to be showing up forwards, but it's backwards on my screen. But C, G, A, G. I want you to think about what that melody should sound like. Just think about it. And you could try to sing it, but you could also just think about it, right? So the first thing I want to know is where that C is. Now, we just heard the Music Master Class theme song, so I already have some pitch reference in my head. Bop, 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 bop. My voice is way off. I think is the B. Yeah. So I'm remembering that from, 10 minutes ago. And that would allow me to find C. B, C, there's C. All right, now I know where my C is. I've talked a little bit about the idea of building perfect pitch and to what extent that might be possible or even useful, but let's just go with that. C. And now I want to look at my melody here. C, and then the next note is G, A, G. That's the melody. And then there's some E's. E, D, E, C, C, G. I'm actually reading backwards through the back of the paper, but I think that's what I see. I know how to sing C and then down to G because I've practiced that. And if you saw the video that I posted where I went through some of Jim's exercises and talked through it, this idea of being able to sing through that tonic triad is super powerful, right? So that's one of the exercises, one of the things that we'll work on is making sure that we can sing scales accurately and that we can sing triads accurately. And not like random, like, sing me an F sharp minor triad now. I can't do that right now. But if I'm in the key of C, I hope I can sing a C major triad. So knowing what's important to sing versus this sort of drill every possible combination of things. That's where I think a lot of traditional aural skills training or ear training goes a little sideways, a little off. It's too focused on randomness, like making sure you can do these random things, rather than focusing on importantness, making sure that you can do the important things well, because those are the common things, and that's what's easier to get a handle on, and then you build some skills doing that, and then eventually you can do other combinations of things also. So this whole idea of ear training is powerful, but we're going to use the chat here, and I want to engage you guys and gals to be thinking about this question of ear training. Well, what does it really mean? Like, I'm not a singer, obviously. I don't sing for a living. I don't sing in choirs, although I kind of have this this thing in me that wants to just do it. Find a community choir that doesn't require you to be any good, just to have that experience because it seems fun. But in any case, I don't need to sing well to do what I do. I need to sing well enough to demonstrate things to you. And I consider this a little bit of a plus that I don't have a great singing voice, because it shows you that you can learn some things about sight singing without having a great voice either. And it's not about having a great voice. It's about having these skills. But what else, right? Sight singing, okay, that's a skill and occasionally useful skill. If you're singing, in a choir, it's a very useful skill. But what else? This idea that maybe I want to see this melody here and be able to audiate it. In other words, just recognize what that melody should sound like in my head. Well, that's a useful skill in itself. I'll be right back here. So, yesterday, you might remember I showed you the Bach preludes and fugues, right? The well-tempered clavier. Well, when I'm looking through this, looking for examples of things, I might want to look at these things to see which is, like maybe I'm hearing one on the radio. Or, I'm listening to the classical music station. Up comes one of the Bach fugues, and I'm like, I bet that's one of the ones from Well Tempered Clavier. I wonder which one it is. Well, I got to start flipping through this thing and imagining what these things sound like, so that I can, look at this and say, let me sing that melody in my head and match it against what I'm hearing on the radio and decide, is that the right one? Now, that might seem like a weird, really specific, arbitrary thing to do, but it's not really. I mean, if you're looking for, say you're looking for a song, sheet music for a song, and the song is called, I don't know, Love. There's probably 20,000 songs out there called Love. And so you find sheet music for a song called Love, and you're wondering, is this the right one? So you might remember Megan we had a song that we worked on for her, a Liberace song that we tried to figure out by ear for her. And the name of the song matched up with a different song. Am I confusing it with something else? Anyhow, there was something where someone was looking for a song. I think it was that one. And it turned out there was a totally different song that had the same title. And how would you know that? Well, you need to look at that sheet music and start looking at it and go, yeah, that doesn't match what I'm hearing, does it? Because maybe the lyrics do it, but maybe not. And Dave, yeah, the thing that you're talking about are called incipits, or incipit, INCIPIT. And yeah, this book doesn't have them, but yeah, that's a real typical thing that you would see at the beginning of a collection, is just showing you all the first two measures, or first little phrase of every piece listed in the table of contents, so that you can look at that and kind of sing through and go, oh yeah, not that one. Oh yeah, not that one. Oh yeah, this one is the one I want, right? But that's audiation. That's the skill of looking at the music and imagining what it sounds like, so you don't have to actually go to the piano and plunk it out, or pick up your flute or saxophone or whatever to plunk it out. So those kinds of skills are super important. So when I said I wanted to engage you here, what I'm looking for is for people to talk about where else, practically speaking, in your own lives, anything having to do with ear training seems useful to you. Now, we're on a delay here, so you might be, by the time you type something, I might already be talking about it. But that's fine. I just want to see what people say about what you think might be useful to you, where you've already found ear training useful, or, where you wish you had that skill a little more. So let me just talk about some other aspects of this ear training, and then I'll go on and talk about other things. Let me bring up my my little paper keyboard again, which is nicely laminated because I use it a lot. If I want to, actually, I don't really want the laminated keyboard for this. I want my real keyboard, and you don't have to see the keys for this. If I want to learn a melody by ear, then I need to hear, when I hear that melody, then I need to be able to play it. So I'm going to play you a little melody right now, okay? And it won't be the one from this thing here. It's actually going to be some Bach. Let's do this with some Bach, shall we? Let's learn some Bach by ear. So here is a little bit of a fugue. This is the beginning of one of the fugues. Let me turn that up a little bit. Is that up? Is that loud enough? Yeah, I think it should be. Says I've got my volumes set where I usually do, so you all tell me if it's not loud enough. That is our melody. And so it's nice that I don't have the screen sharing on, because now you don't see my fingers on the keys. You don't know what it is. This is our melody, and I'll play it a couple times. And yeah, let's actually think about trying to notate this. So one question you might have right away is, well, what key is that in? there's a couple different aspects to that question, right? There's, do you have perfect pitch to be able to figure that out? Let's not worry about that. But there's even, where do you think the tonic is? So let me notate, let me mention these notes. These aren't scale degrees I'm talking. I'm just numbering the notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. These are our notes. One of those notes was the tonic. One of those notes was scale degree 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It was all 16th notes. The last two are 8th notes. Of those notes, by number, because you don't know the pitches yet, but which one of those actually feels like the tonic to you? There's some things that I know how to teach you, and there's some things that are a little bit hard to be objective about. It's like somehow you just have to know it. So Dean's got a guess in here. I'll take other guesses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And everyone seems to be going with 5 for the most part. Oh, we got a whole thing. I'm looking at the answers in here, and most people are picking 5 as the are picking 5 as the tonic. A couple people are picking something else, and one I see a comment about notes that 1 and 10 are scale degree 5, which is the first pitch that I would expect someone to mistake for 1, because, well, why is that even? Why might it be common to mistake scale degree 5 for scale degree 1? So Graham has a really good way of putting this. It seems to rest on note 5. If I stopped there, you'd feel like, oh, that was a complete statement with a period at the end of it. Whereas the full phrase feels like a little bit of a question. Is what I expect to happen next or something, right? Yeah. So you're all right about 5. 5 is the tonic there. The fifth note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That fifth note is the tonic. That idea that you somehow hear it as providing some sense of finality is definitely the key. When I say I can't teach you how to hear that, no, but I can tell you what to listen for. That's what you're listening for. You're listening for this idea of a note being somehow the point of finality, the ending point. Where does it feel like, oh yeah, the song could end when it hits that note? But the reason why scale degree 5, so it starts and ends on scale degree 5. Whoever said that, I think Dean, is absolutely correct. Oops. It ended on the same note it started with. I'm just trying to hold out that note. I didn't take a big enough breath. But right, it ended on the same note it started with. That is scale degree 5. That relationship between scale degree 5 and 1 is really fundamental. That 5 to 1. 5 chords going to 1 chord, sol going to do, and 1, 3, 5 being the tonic triad. These notes have a really important relationship to each other. So it's going to be the case that sol, scale degree 5, is super important in kind of orienting your ear around a key. But there's another reason why you might actually mistake it for 1, and that is that the key. First of all, I'm curious. Anyone who actually knows that piece and knows which fugue it is, don't answer. Anyone who actually sat down at a piano or other instrument and figured out what key it is, don't answer. But anyone who doesn't already absolutely positively know the answer, I want you to give me your guess as to what key that was. And then we'll talk a little bit about that. But yeah, I'm curious what cues that people are able to draw from to help you recognize what key this actually was. What was that fifth note? What was that tonic there? What actual note? Was it a C? Was it a G? Was it a A flat, an F sharp, whatever? You just tell me what note you think it was. Um, there's not well, there's obviously a right answer to it, but it's not like I expect you to have that answer. But I want to talk about keys here because what I want to mention is whatever that scale degree 1 is, scale degree 5 is the most related key. Um, so if the song had been in the key of C, the key of G, the C major has no flats, no sharps. G has one sharp. It's only one note different. C is all white notes. G is all white notes except for F sharp. F is all white notes except for B flat. So those are the most related keys. Whatever key, if you start in C, either G or F are what are called the related keys. And I see some guesses coming in, and this is good. Haven't gotten a correct one yet, for what it's worth, but I'm not. Yeah, I'm just gonna let that run for a little bit here. But so if you're in the key of C, G and F are your related keys. G has one more sharp, F has one more flat than the start key, and that's always the case. The whatever key you're in, the key based on scale degree 5 is going to have one more sharp or one fewer flat. The key based on scale degree 4 is going to have one more flat or one fewer sharp. And those are the related keys. And so the scale degree 5 has that relationship to scale degree 1 in terms of their keys because they're very similar. They have a lot of the same notes. So it's very often the case that, unless the melody contains the note that proves that, like if you have a melody in C and it doesn't have any Fs or any F sharps, you won't know it's not in G. You can't prove it necessarily because all the notes in the melody are both in the key of C and in the key of G, right? Only if that one note shows up would you have that clue that differentiates it. And so then you have to be a little more subjective about, well, when does it feel more final? So Graham has the correct answer on your second guess there. E flat was the key. So how would you know that? Well, again, if you've got perfect pitch, then you know that. Just like you look at my blue sweatshirt back there and say, oh, that's blue. You just know what blue looks like, right? But if you don't have perfect pitch, it's not expected that you know this. However, I still have an oral memory of my music masterclass theme. Ba, ba. Yeah? That memory tells me B, C. And of course, I know I wrote the piece. I know it starts with B, C. And we just sang ding dong, diggity, diggy, diggy dong. I think someone had posted this to a MuseScore forum saying they were having problems printing it. And so I decided to print it and see if I had problems with it also. And I didn't. So if you remember where the C, B, C, and then we sang ding dong, diggy diggy dong, you know where C and G and these notes are, and now we can relate. Can I remember what this ba da 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 bum is my note that I want to find? Yeah, and then bum 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 bum. So I remember where my C is. Here's my C. Here's the note I want to identify. And now I can sort of walk my way up. C, D, E would be an E. E flat is E flat. So I can use my recent pitch memory to help me find this. I'm not saying that that's like an easy thing to do or anything, but it's a practical thing to do. It really is. So when I talk about, and now I want to broaden my scope a little bit here because I've been talking really specific about specific things about ear training. It's how would I put it? It's there's a lot to this idea of audiation and being able to make these connections. And so This is all part of it. And some of it is like doesn't come up as often, or maybe isn't as useful, or there's better, or there's other ways around it, like just pick out a piano and find it. But this came up, someone was talking about being able to, like, having a hard time just identifying the beginning note of a piece. Well, now we're talking, well, can you go to the piano and match that pitch? That would be great. But if you don't have a piano handy, how would you do it? Well, these things that I'm doing are part of it. I would try to use my memory, my pitch memory, to find a recent pitch that I know and then relate the pitch I'm trying to find to it. So that is definitely something I do. Well, now I mentioned, so you've all now gotten that fifth note is the tonic and it's E flat. And we've said that it starts on scale degree 5. Well, now let's see if we can pick out the whole melody. A couple people tried to tell us what they thought the whole melody was. Actually, only one gave us the whole melody because this is something different here. But let's listen to it one more time. Let me talk about something else that just happened right there. So first of all, my question for you is, give me the melody. Tell me the melody. Tell me the notes. Tell me scale degrees if you prefer. Tell me solfege if you prefer. Tell me notes. You know it's an E flat now. You know it starts on scale degree 5. So, yeah, give me your best guess as to the actual notes. What just happened here is I'm not looking at the music anymore. I closed the book up. I remember that melody. I played it a few times. Yeah, I've heard it before too. But this idea that let's just stick with that melody for now. Let's not confuse the thing. The idea of being able to remember a melody after only hearing it once or twice and keep it in your head while other things happen, while you carry on a conversation or whatever. Why might this be important? I'm asking you to tell me why you think ear training might be important to you, and I still am, still taking any answers to that, why you think it might be useful. But this idea that you've just played a melody and now you want to be able to remember it somehow. Well, and think about, well, why this could be useful. Well, in my experience as a jazz musician, I'm improvising. I hear a melody in my head, I want to be able to play it. So I need to have that skill, right? Just to be able to take a melody I just heard in my head and be able to play it. So this is this is like me playing this and asking you to tell me what those notes are. This is like you actually heard me physically play that melody like 12 times now. That's an easier task because you actually heard that melody compared to improvisation, because improvisation is imagining a melody and then playing it. It's harder because you're not literally hearing it, but it's easier because no one can tell you you're wrong, right? If someone writes out the notes, if someone writes out those notes and they get it wrong, well, we can just look it up in a book and see if you're right or wrong, right? There's an objectively true answer. But if I say, I'm thinking of a melody right now, and then I go to play it, and I don't get what I'm thinking, you would have no way of knowing if I got it right or wrong, right? Jazz musicians, anyone improvising, you strive to get a good representation of what you're hearing in your head, but you're going to fail sometimes, and that's fine. It creates accidents, happy accidents sometimes, and then you move on. So, bum 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 ba da dum bum bum. Yeah, so the answers that I'm seeing are good here. Warren, you have a G at the beginning of yours that doesn't really belong there. That was probably just a typo. Because if I start with your B flat, Warren, is absolutely correct, and Dean has that there also. So let's talk about why that skill could be useful. And then Graham has it as scale degrees. 5, 3, 2, 3, 1. Now, so Graham has one thing off here. Let's look at this because he got the key right. Great job there. 5, 3, 2, 3, 1, 3, 2, 3 is what you have. And the correct answer is the way Warren and Dean have it, where it's 5, 3, 2, 3, 1, 4, 3, 4. That's the kind of odd glitch in this melody. It's not a glitch. It's not like Bach made a mistake, but uh it's an interesting, it's a not expected thing. We kind of expect, like, right, that feels like, oh, we're just sort of playing around with that tonic triad. That feels expected. And so one of the things that goes on here is recognizing when a note shows up that's not what you expect. Right? So hearing a note that's not what you expect and going, that is the hardest part of that melody to hear. That is the part I would have gotten wrong too my first try. That is the part where if you just played me that melody once and asked me to reproduce it, I probably would have gotten that same note wrong because it's just not quite what I expect. I expect more what Graham said. So I have to really listen to it. Ba-dum, bum, and have to think about where those pitches, ba-da-da-da-dum, and singing it helps. Ba-da-da-da-dum, ba-dum, and then there's my first note, there's the note, ba-dum, bum, bum, bum. That's not 2, 1, that's 3, 2, 1, right? So being able to actually sing it out loud and place it in your voice and count how many steps are in between the notes in a leap, that kind of stuff is really useful kind of stuff. Now, when I took ear training classes in college, they would always tell you, no, 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 don't sing it, just do it with your ear. And yeah, that's good too. But singing, it's a good skill too, and it's like the training wheels on a bike, maybe, or a crutch. Crutches serve a purpose after you've broken your leg, right? You need the crutch. Well, when you're first learning how to do this kind of stuff, this idea of singing through stuff is absolutely helpful. No shame in it. But yeah, eventually you want to do more and more without needing to do that. So again, I would love to hear from you where you think these skills could be useful. Humble in Music says you don't have this skill at all. And so I'm going to get back to that thing of memory, right? This melody, the fact that I heard it and then remembered it, I mean, I played it a bunch of times. But if it was a melody that I literally heard once and then I want to have this sort of oral memory of it, that oral memory of it is connected to this audiation, right? It's connected to this the same thing that allows you to sort of really hear what those notes are. That's what's going to allow you to remember a melody well, because now it's something logical. And so this connection between, what you're hearing and what's actually going on is one of the things that enables you as a composer to reuse themes effectively, right? If you've written a theme and you want to reuse it, you don't want to have to go back and look at what that theme was, right? Because now you're copying and pasting, you're not composing, if that makes sense, right? Copy and pasting can be a part of composing for sure, but I want to know, I would like to know while I'm composing, let me. I'm just improvising here, but when I started improvising and I got to a little, I was like, oh, I played something that kind of reminded me of that original theme. So it's not the same intervals at all, but it reminded me of. That's not even what I played the last time, right? But this idea that you recognize something that's similar to something you did before because you have that memory of all these little things you've written, this is what's going to enable you to realize that when this happens, realize that, hey, I just stumbled on something that's similar to that theme I've been working. Now is a chance for me to develop that theme more. This is hugely important when you're doing things like writing fugues, especially, but any kind of music where you want to reuse material. You want to recognize when you've stumbled on something that's close enough to something that you've used before that you can develop it. So as a composer, these skills of really, I don't know, owning these melodies, owning the audiation of it, and really having that connection where it's not, it's not just pushing ink around a page or pixels around a screen, but it's really dealing with it musically. It's all connected, right? So this is kind of my thing. So I focused a lot on ear training here because that's what we've been talking about. But when I talk about these musicianship skills that we're going to be working on in this workshop going forward, it's not just about ear training. That's going to be a big part of it, something that you've all expressed interest in. But I want to think about like that email I sent out earlier and talk about what some of the other things were. So one of the things was about I mentioned people I know that do play by ear well, but then they don't really read that well, or uh, they don't really have a solid understanding of the theory that would allow them to communicate with other musicians well. And so this is something that I want to talk about a little bit also in this context. I don't I'm not saying that I'm going to be spending a lot of time trying to teach people how to read music. In some ways because it's a fundamental skill, and sometimes I'm not the best at teaching the really basic fundamental skills, but there's a lot of great information out there on how to read music. But what I found is that there's certain things that are a little off, or can be a little off, or if you don't approach it right, then they can possibly lead you astray, possibly lead you to not read as effectively. So I'm going to try to share my screen again for a second, and you all can tell me if it works or not. And if it doesn't work, I'm not going to sweat it. So it's curious to me that this window is, well, you can't see that yet until I share. So it says that I'm sharing my screen, and my screen says it's sharing something. We stop my capture. Let me restart the capture. Full screen. And you all tell me now, is this actually working? Do you see my hands on the keys multiple times? And then if I flip over to MuseScore, do you see MuseScore? Is, I guess, the question. And if not going to sweat it. But I want to talk about, remember yesterday, if you were in the MuseScore Café yesterday when I was talking about music notation and music engraving, and I talked about these rules for notation of rhythm. And this comes up pretty often in the MuseScore forums where someone, in fact, it just came up this morning, where someone posted an example of a piece of music they had written in which the rhythms were written incorrectly, and someone gave them the feedback that you should correct it. They corrected it, and then someone else told them, no, it was better the first time, and they were asking about this. So, so I mentioned that in the cafe yesterday that there's these rules for how we write rhythms to enable us to recognize these 8 fundamental rhythms that show up over and over again. So if you can see MuseScore right now, and so let me know if you can, and if not, I'm, again, not going to sweat it. But here I have, right, 16th, 16th, 8th, tied to another 8th, then 16th, 16th. Arms over the keys but frozen. That is so weird. All right, I'm going to try one other thing. Let's just kill that window and try one other version of this where I just share my screen. Right? Just full on. You don't get the keys right now, but you don't need them. So, boo. This series of 8th, 16th, 16th, 8th, and then tied to another 8th, and then 2 16ths. These 2 8ths that are tied together in the middle, if you can see it, then great, and if not, trust me, it's 2 16ths and an 8th, and then the 8th is tied to another 8th, and then 2 16ths. This 8th tied to an 8th could have been written as a quarter note, but it would have been not correct. From the perspective of these rules for how we notate rhythms. And this rule of notating rhythm, from the music engraving workshop, I'll be telling you about these rules and why to do them and do this. But now I want to talk about how you can actually make use of that. The reason these rules exist is to make the music easier to read. Because now all I have to do is read this one beat at a time. Bop, bop, bum, bum, bop. I know 2/16 and an eighth is bop, bop, bum. And I could read that all day long. Bop, bop, bum, 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 right? I mean, that's like a no-brainer. That's I can read that. Bop, bop, bum, bop, bop, bum, bop, bop, bum, 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 bum. 16th, 16th, 8th. Again, as I have mentioned before, there's only 8 rhythms out there. Only 8 ways you can stuff a beat full of 16ths and 8ths. There's triplets, there's other things in the world. But when we come down to basic notation of the basic rhythmic elements, the basic durations and so forth, there's the same 8 over and over again. And so music should be all about pattern recognition. So this is about recognizing bop-bop-bum and then beat 2. So the first beat here is bop-bop-bum, and the second one is bum-buppa. Right? And some people I know put like words to that, and that's fine. Applesauce and people for some reason food comes up. I'm not coming up with a bum papa right now. Hush puppies. That's terrible, but whatever. Applesauce, hush puppies. And then the tie is applesauce, and I don't sing the hush. That's clever. That's pretty cool, actually. Applesauce, hush, puppies. That's that rhythm. Applesauce, hush, puppies. Right? So if you know these 8 rhythms, and there's only 8 of them, you get to know them. And if you've never thought of reading that way, well, then you're missing out on a lot of great cues that can help you read complex rhythms that have syncopations and ties across bar lines and other things going on. The same things that tend to mess people up won't mess you up. These are the things that mess people up, right? Because if it's nothing but a whole steady stream of eighth notes or quarter notes, you're going to get it right. It's when there's mixtures of 16ths and eighths and ties and other things going on, syncopations, because that's what this is. That is basically a quarter note, but it's not a quarter note on a beat. It's a quarter note off the beat, and that's why it gets split up with the tie there. And those are the things that people get wrong reading. And if you know how to take advantage of these cues, bum, 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 puppy, and know that this note, that's the target of the tie, is on the beat. Spoiler alert, all notes, if you see a tie going into it, it's because it's on the beat. There's a slight exception in 6/8. I'm not going to worry about it. But in general, if you see a tie going into a note, that note that got the tie into it is on the beat. So you can, if you mess up anything in the beat before, then you can get back on track with that one. But by knowing that it's split up the 2 beats that way, it's going to help you, right? So if you struggle at all reading complex rhythms, this is a skill that can be worked on, and it's connected to these notation skills. So I talk about that, but then I talk about music theory. Let's talk about this melody again, and think about that melody. The memorization of that, the fact that we're able to realize this is just a triad, and even if you don't see the notes, that's fine. It's 5, 3, 3, 1, 5, 3, 1, with a little hint of 2.
That would be negative 998.
Wow, Siri just thought I said something about math and tried to answer the question for me. That is weird. Okay, so anyhow, the knowing the relationship, the theory of what's going on helps you memorize things, because now you're seeing patterns. You're not just seeing a random sequence of notes. And I've done this experiment before too, right? Where I asked you to remember this sequence of notes: 5, 8, 4, 7, 1, 6, 2, 3, 9. And then, can you remember that 5 minutes later? And the answer is probably not. But if I say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you're going to get it. So you're going to remember that next week. You're going to remember that next year. You're going to remember that 20 years from now. Because it's a pattern that you can identify with. The more we can recognize patterns, the better we can process that information. We can sight read it better, because we recognize the pattern. We can memorize more quickly, because we recognize the pattern. So these rhythmic patterns, is that part of music theory? I don't know. It's part of music notation. But recognizing scale type patterns is pretty important. Like if I recognize that this is, those first three notes here is an A minor arpeggio. Well, now I've memorized it already. It's not 3 bits of information. It's 1 bit of information to remember that it's A minor arpeggio. And whatever it does after that. I don't even know what it does after that, but I'm guessing it goes to F, yeah. Theory, these bits of theory allow you to do things like that. So when I say that this musicianship skills workshop is going to also involve theory, that's part of what I mean. Is that it's going to help you. I want you to really understand why knowing what a triad is and knowing how these things are spelled, how this is actually useful to you. Because there's one of the other things that goes wrong in a lot of traditional teaching. You learn what triads are. You learn these things, but then you don't learn, well, how is this applicable to actual music? And the thing is, it's very applicable. It's applicable if you're an improviser, of course. It's applicable if you're a composer, of course, because you need to know the chords to be dealing with what you're dealing with. But it's also applicable even if you're just playing sheet music, because it's going to help you read it more effectively and it's going to help you memorize it more quickly. And now, when I talk about chords, I get to something else that I know is of interest to many of you. I know Dean's talked about this some, is being able to pick out chord progressions by ear. It's one thing to pick out melodies by ear, like we just played with a little bit there, and that is absolutely a learnable skill. We're going to work on that. But also picking out chord progressions by ear. I would actually claim that in many ways, picking out chord progressions by ear is easier than picking out melodies by ear. And that's because there's fewer chords than there are notes. That's not really literally true, but if someone tells me that they've got 2 notes, if you have a C and then you ask me, what do you think the next note in this melody is? It could be anything. Yeah, there's a pretty good chance it's D or B, because that's a step above or below. But it could be D flat also, or B flat. If you don't know what key you're in, you don't really know. But there could be leaps, right? The melodies, they have a ton of variety in them. But chord progressions, there's much less variety. If I've just had a 2 chord and now I've got a 5 chord, and you're wondering, well, what's the next chord going to be? 9 times out of 10, it's 1. That's where 2-5 goes. And if it doesn't go to 1, it probably goes to 3 or 6. This stuff is predictable. And so then it becomes a question of recognizing whether it's meeting those expectations or not. So let me ask you a question. I'm going to play you, and again, you can't see my keys, right? Good. I'm going to play you a 2-5. So the first 2 chords in the key of C were 2 and then 5. And then I played another chord. And the question for you is, was that 1? And if not, what was it? I kind of just gave you 80% of the answer here. So I'll play it again. The first question, again, so this is 2. I'll play you C major scale, and now 2, 5, mystery chord. Okay? So, yeah, I've got one answer here, and I'll take any others also. So the thing is, knowing what the 2-5-1, which is the most common thing, what it sounds like, and then being able to ask yourself, was it that, or was it something else? That's like a good ear training skill to have, to recognize what these common chord progressions sound like. So when it happens, you know which one it is. You know if it's that common one or if it's something else. And so if it's that common one, you can just check it off. So I've got 2 different answers here, and one is 6 and one is 3. And those are the things that I told you were the 2 most common. Well, one of you is right. It is not the 1 chord. This is what 2-5-1 would have sounded like. That's what it would have sounded like going to 1. Is what I played. That was either 6 or 3. I'm now going to play you the other one. So one of those, the one I originally played, or that one I just played, one of those was 6 and one of them was 3 that I ended on. And then getting good at figuring out, well, which one is which and how would you tell that? Well, now what we're realizing though is now we're dealing with one specific little bit of information, figuring out how to tell the difference between 6 and 3 when it comes after a 2 chord. And this is so it's a minor chord, so probably 6. So 3 is also minor, right? They're both minor. So when I played, that's minor, but this is also minor, right? Um, again, one of those answers is right. I'll say more about it in a minute. But the fact that we're able to get really specific by narrowing down choices and saying, of all the chords that could have come after that 2-5, it was probably a 1. And as soon as we asked her, and so 90% of the time it's going to be 1, and we're going to hear that and check it off and go, yep, that's right. So that 10% of the time when it's not 1, 90% of the time it's either 6 or 3. And now we just got to get good at figuring out the difference between 6 and 3. And if we get good at that, now we've covered like 99% of all cases of chords that come after a 2 and a 5. Just by learning a couple simple things. And this is what harmony, getting an ear for harmony, is going to be about. It's going to be learning these common patterns, what they sound like, how to recognize when we deviate from that pattern, and what the most common alternatives are, and then what they sound like, etc. And by a relatively small number of those sorts of things to learn, we can piece together most chord progressions. So I'm going to tell you that for me, if I heard this, I think I would have got it right the first time, just gut feel wise, but here's what I would have listened for to tell me for sure. What was the melody note? That note that I'm ending on in the melody. What scale degree is that? Well, if I can recognize what scale degree that is, that's going to narrow down my options between that 6 chord and that 3 chord. That was do ti do 1 7 1. Note wise, that was a C B C. And now I just ask myself, well, which of those 2 chords has a C in it? Is it the 6 chord, A minor, or is it the 3 chord, E minor? And, well, the answer is A minor. 6 is the one that has that C in it. So that could be the differentiator for me. So it's a combination of knowing a little, enough about theory to help you piece these things together. And these things that you're all saying, like, that it's a minor chord, and so that's helping you know that it's one of those 2, then that's definitely a good clue. But how about this one? If I go, and now it's just going, can you tell that this is just going back and forth? And now I'm still hearing that C in the melody, but something is telling me, oh yeah, but it's also repeating the previous chord, right? So that's another bit of aural memory that you have working for you. So anyhow, the set of harmonic skills that you learn of which chord progressions are common and what they do, it's not a huge jump to get from that academic knowledge of it to a practical place of being able to hear these things, because now you just have, you just play through these chord progressions and get them into your head. And so that's what we're going to be doing here. All right, so what I want to do here is wrap up, because, okay, time for the commercial then. So again, if you're already so if you were an all access member going back from the last couple of years when that's what I've been calling it, you're already in. If not, consider joining as a gold level member. So let me, oops, not that button. I didn't mean to press that button. Let me press the stop sharing button instead. So I'm just going to type in the address of where you can sign up. And I think most of the people who are watching here are already in, but Well, that was weird. My browser crashed. That's kind of a new one for me. So, browser crashed. Computer didn't crash. The browser crashed. Go figure. Um, anyhow, just do the thing there. Yeah, because I was trying to type in the link, but y'all find it. I'll post it anyhow in the comments. So go ahead and join. There's a new thing coming, and those of you who have a few extra minutes, I will encourage you to stick around and try. If my screen doesn't freeze this time, no, I'll just tell you right after we hang up. If you are a gold level member, go to the community. And well, you're kind of there now, but just go to the main page there and look on the left sidebar where it lists all the spaces. And under gold level members, you will see one that says study hall. I'm trying something new here, and we're going to see if it worked. Okay, so join me in study hall if you can. The community site. There we go. So that's what I'll do, and we just play out the music and talk through, because I don't know if I came back effectively or if I'm still frozen. So study hall, yes. So this is right as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to hop over to that study hall, and we're going to try just a little experiment. So it's just if you have a few minutes to try out a new service. It's not a new service. I used it once or twice before, but we're going to see if it can work for what I'm calling study hall. Okay. So, and what it is, it's like a Zoom meeting, but it's a Zoom meeting that can be embedded within the website. And for a while, I was doing office hours that way, and we might try that again also. So anyhow, it's another thing to try and see if it works better. So thanks, everyone, for being here. And I'm going to go over to the study hall right now, and just go ahead and join me there, okay? So thanks, everyone, and see you shortly.